Welcome back. We're up to page Chagigah, page 14a, in the middle of the page. So we're continuing. The Gemara now goes into a new story, and it's a little lengthy. We'll see how much we're going to cover. I hope we'll be able to cover it because I'm not going to be translating that much because the Gemara itself is going to be translating it. So let's start. Rav Dima came. I think he came from Bovel to Israel. He came back to Israel, or the other way. Okay, doesn't make big of a difference now. Omar, he said, Shmoina esre klulas kilel Yeshaya es Yisroel. He's saying it also in an encrypted way. He says that 18 curses, klulas means a curse, 18 curses, Yeshaya was the prophet at the time of before the destruction of the temple, I think it's the second temple or the first. Yeah. I really need to polish up on my nach. So he cursed 18 curses on the Jews. I want to pause right here, right now. The Gemara is using a phrase of klulas, which is curses. And he didn't really curse. He was just sharing a prophecy that he has learned from Hashem to give over to the Yidden. So one of the commentators say, why is it called curses? It's because he didn't condition these. All the other troubles that he said that will befall the Yidden was on a condition if we won't behave. These 18, he didn't say any conditions. He says, this is coming. Therefore, the Gemara is calling it that he cursed the Klal Yisrael. He cursed the Yidden, saying that this is what's coming upon them. And the Gemara is even using the expression here even stronger now. And he did not calm down, meaning he was so worked up until he finished off with this last part of the phrase. He said, Yirhavi hanar bezukim. I'm going to translate, which means the young will disrespect the elder, meaning they have chutzpah. V'hanukla banichbat, which means the daughter-in-law will disrespect her mother-in-law, meaning the young will disrespect the elder. This is also part of the curses that the Gemara is using here. And the Gemara is using an expression that he hasn't calmed down. He couldn't relax until he ended up with this last curse. Now, of course, we're going to explain it later down. But the Gemara is first starting off, Shmoina esre klulas, these 18 curses, manini, what are they? So the Gemara is going to now call out a whole phrase, a long part, maybe even multiple phrases. And the Gemara is going to translate each and every word of it later down as to what does this mean, what does this mean. But I'm just going to go through it, and I'm not going to translate much because the Gemara is going to do that. So the Gemara asks, Manini, what are they? Because it says, Kahina Yehuda Hashem Tzavukos. And Hashem, the Tzavukos means the general, the head of the army. He's going to take away from Yisroel, which is the Jews, and Yehida is another expression for Jews. He's going to take away, and here we start. The first thing is Mashain. The Gemara is going to explain right here what's Mashain. Mashainu. And we're going to learn later what's Mashainu. Kol Mishan Lechem. Lechem is bread, so anyone desires bread, but again, the Gemara is going to explain it right here. The Kol Mishan Mayim. Gibor means strong, but what does it mean strong here? What's the curse? The Ishmael Chumu, person of war. Shoifait, which is usually a judge. The Novi means a prophet. The Koisaim, again, the Gemara is going to explain. I don't know how to translate it by itself. The Zokan means the elder. Sar Chamishim means someone who's over 50. In a Sipunam, people who have nice faces. I mean, the Gemara is going to explain everything, but I'm just giving hints as to how they translate. The Yoyites, someone who is smart and gives ideas. The Chacham is someone who's also smart. Harushin means quiet. The Nuvan Luchash, and someone who understands the unspoken. Nusati Urim Suraya, and he's going to make youngsters to be the leaders. Young people will be the leaders. The Salilim Yim Shiliba. And the Salilim, the Lord is going to explain, they will be in charge of them. They will control everything. So these are not 18, these are just 16 of the curses, because the last two we have learned before that he finished off with the last two. And we're going to come back to that afterwards. So let's go through these 16. So the Gemara starts off Mashain, which was the first one. What's Mashain? So the Gemara says Mashain means Ailebal Mikru. These are the people who understand the phrases. They know the whole Torah, the phrases, and they know how to learn it. These are Mashan, and these will be taken away from the Yidden. Mashainu, what's Mashainu? The Gemara says Ailebal Mishnah. These are the people who not just learn the Torah, they learn Mishnayos, which is already part of the oral Torah and the commentators of it. And the Gemara even gives an example of who would there be with the Mishnayos. Who would that be? So the Gemara says, for an example, like Reb Hida ben Taimah of Klal Yisrael, the Yidden will lose someone as valuable as him, as which he knew so much Mishnayos. And the Gemara is going to tell us here how much Mishnayos did we have that we lost. So the Gemara says, Pliege by Rav Papa v'Rabunan. Rav Papa argues with the Rabbunan that disagree. It doesn't say who says what. They just say these two disagree. Kadumer, one of them says, Shaish Mayesh Sidra Nishna, 600 sets of Mishnayos. I don't know how to translate Sidra. Currently, we have 6 Sidra Mishnah. We have only 6 right now, and each one of these 6, the average of 10. That's why we have 6D tractates. But we had back then 600. So whatever we have right now, we're only having 10%? No, 100. We only have 6 now, and we had 600 back then. So only 1% of what we had. The Chadumer, one of them said, Shva Mayas, it was 700, meaning that we don't even have 1% now. That's how much Mishnayos we had. The oral Torah was that big, and we lost it all. The next curse was the Kol Nishan Leichem. What does it mean? The Gemara says it means Aile Bale Talmud. These are the ones who learn Gemara, which they know Mishnayos and they know how to compare, and they learn Gemara. Why does it mean Bala Talmud when it says Kol Nishan Leichem? Because it says in the phrase L'chi lachmi belachmi shesi yain musachti. And I must say that I don't understand this. Let me see if I can dive into the translation. I don't see where from this phrase. Let me first translate it. L'chi lachmi belachmi, come with your bread and my bread. Let's drink the yain musachti, and the wine that I've poured. I'm going to turn on some translation here, and we'll see if they give us a better explanation as to how do we see from this that Kol Nishan Leichem means a Talmud. So Kol Nishan Leichem means every support of bread. These are masters of Talmud. As it states, come eat of my bread and drink of my wine that I have mingled. And every support of water, he doesn't say it, neither. He just continues on. And every support of water, which is already the next one here, the Chol Mishan Mayim. The Chol Mishan Mayim, right here. So it doesn't say, it just says, it doesn't answer my question, basically. It says, come eat my bread and come drink my wine. And from here, we see that Kol Nishan Leichem means someone who's learning Talmud. I don't know how, but I'll continue. I won't get stuck here. Okay. Kol Mishan Mayim, anyone who supports water, what does that mean? Aile Bala Haguda. These are the people who know to learn the philosophical stories in the Gemara. Why does it call Mayim? Shemoshkem liber shel udam kamayim ba'aguda. It pulls the heart of the person to learn like water runs, so does this. It helps people to learn Talmud by learning the stories that the sages share, and we learn the philosophical ideas, how they lived and what was important and what life was about. And that's like water. That's what means kol mishan le'moya. Gibor, someone who's strong. Zebal shmias, people who listen. Okay, again, I guess it takes a lot of strength to be able to just listen, because the Muda says Gibor has no strength. It means that we'll be losing those who have the power of just listening. The Ishmul Chono, people who know how to fight. It means those people who know how to give and take when it comes in the war of Torah. And those are the people that will be losing Shoifet, we will be losing judges. So he says, no, Zedain Shadan Din Emes Lamito. It doesn't mean regular judges. We're having judges nowadays as well. It means those judges who know how to get down to the truth of the story and to give a truth judgment. That's what we're missing. Novi, we're missing a Novi. The Gemara says Kishmashmuah, as it means a prophet, and we lost all prophecy. Koisam, what's a koisam? I didn't even know how to translate it before. The Gemara says now koisam means zemela, that's a king. And the Gemara says shnema because we see in another phrase it says kesam al sifsam melech, which means the kesam, whatever that means, is at the mouthpiece for the king. So you see koisam represents a king. Zokain, elderly. What do you mean we're going to lose elderly? People won't live long? The Gemara says no. Zeh sherui liyeshiva. Elderly means those who are worthy of study. That they either it means, like we have learned last week, the elders in yeshiva, that these are the people who share a lot of wisdom of many years of study, or it means elderly people that are worthy for us to study them, to learn from them, that we can pick up. They're like a good example for us to follow. Right? Again, this is all curses that he said that Yidden will be losing. Sar Chamishan, so it really means someone who's old 50. So the Gemara says, no, I'll take the Sar Chamishan. In Sar Chamushin, don't call it someone who's 50 years old. No, call someone who knows the 5/5. Chamushim means in the name of the fifths. What does it mean, the 5/5? It means someone who knows the 5 books of Torah back and forth, that he knows how to give and take when it comes to the Torah. And the Gemara gives another example. Another reason we can say Sar Chamishim also means, like Rabbi Avi once said, Rabbi says, Mikan, from here we learn, we don't put a tone matcher to the public for someone who's less than 50 years old. There's 2 ways we can read this. It means in the older days, the teacher wouldn't have a mic to talk so everyone should hear him. So the teacher would sit up front, and the teacher would look in the book and say something for himself. He would say it quietly to some other person who he has a loud voice, and he was able to call out what the teacher just taught, what the teacher just learned us. So the Gemara says one way to read this is that you don't put someone who's less than 50 years old, doesn't yet deserve to get a metirgim, a tone matcher, someone that would call it out. Another thing this tone matcher would say, the teacher would talk in Hebrew, and the tone matcher would then announce it back in Aramaic. That was the language everyone spoke. So there was like a tone matcher here to translate. You can also read this, that the tone matcher himself needs to be 50 years old, not just the teacher needs to be 50 years old. Meaning a tone matcher also has to be someone who understands. If you ask him, he understands what he's saying and not just repeats word for word. In a sipunum, someone who has a nice face, So the Gemara says, no, that means something like this. That their generation are being privileged because of them. They get some benefits because of them. That's what it means having a nice face. And there's two ways to look at it. There's lamala, which means to Hashem. And who would that be? Tigon Reb Chanina ben Dosa. We know the story of Reb Chanina, the son of Dosa, that there was this Baskel, that this voice came out and said that the whole world is being getting abundance, getting food in the merit of Reb Chanina ben Dosa, and for him it's just enough to eat some, I think it was bakser, kaf charivim. That's what the Baskel said. I don't know how to translate it, but it's basically what it means, that the whole generation would get favor from Hashem because of his merit. That's one way to look at it. And another way to look at someone who has a nice face, lamata, which means at the bottom, not with Hashem, but with the king. And that will be Kigon Rabavi by Kaiser. Rabavi, which he was very good with the Kaiser, which was the Tsar, I don't know how to translate the Kaiser, the monarch, someone who would control that area, and in his merit, he would do favors for the Jews there. So this generation benefited from him. So that's something that we will lose. The next thing we learned, Yoyites. We'll be losing someone who is, Yoyites literally means someone who can give ideas. He's smart, that he gives ideas. And the Gemara says it means someone someone who understands the calculations between the moon and the sun, that he knows when to add a day to the month, when to add a leap year, when to add another month to the year, to equal out, like we have with our calendar. If someone who understands that, that's a calculation that we'll be losing. Those people will be losing them. V'chocham, someone who's smart. It doesn't mean someone who's just smart. It means Talmud hamachtim es rabbosim. It means a student that makes his teachers smart. Because when the teachers teach him and he starts asking his questions, the teachers now have to go back and study. So that's what it means, someone who's a chocham that will be losing. Charushim we know is quiet, but what does it mean? We're going to lose people that are quiet? The Gemara says no, it means at the time when this person opens his mouth to talk Torah, everybody becomes quiet. Everybody says, hey, I want to hear what he has to say. He talks, he's smart, I want to hear what he has to say, and they get quiet. So that's what it means, Charushim. The Novain, someone who understands, the Munis means that he doesn't just understands, it means he understands one thing when you tell him another thing. He automatically understands something else as well. I have to share this joke. When someone says that he owns a lawnmower, then you understand that he must own a lawn and he must own a house that he has to upkeep and he has to. It's a joke. He comes back from somewhere. But basically, the idea is, when it says someone who understands something else by just listening to one part. Luchash, which means also quiet. What does it mean? The Gemara says, Luchash means a person that he is worthy of giving over to him the Torah that has been given only when you say it quietly, meaning the secrets of the Torah that you cannot give over to everyone, only to these people. That's what Luchash means. Luchash means to those people that you talk quietly to them, you give them some secrets about the Torah that you don't just give over to everyone. Okay, the next one we learned, and you're going to have youngsters who will become your leaders. What does it mean? What does it mean? Rabluzer says, it doesn't mean people that are really young. It means people that are empty from mitzvahs. They know very little about how to serve Hashem. They know very little about the Torah, and they will be our leaders. So this is what it says will be the trouble. The Salilim Yim Shiliba, which we said whatever Salilim and Zimur is going to bring now, they will be in control of those leaders who are empty of mitzvahs. Rav Pupper by Yaakov, Rav Pupper, the son of Yaakov, said, Talai b'nai salai. Sorry, I don't know how to translate. What's Talai b'nai salai? So Talmud means faxes, sons of faxes. In other words, inferior people, both in terms of deeds and in terms of lineage. Okay, it didn't help me much, but I'm going to say my explanation here. Salai b'nai salai, I know it means faxes and son of faxes, but what I want to say here, what's a fax? A fax is someone who's smart, but he's smart with his own intentions. He's smart with his personal gains. That's where he's smart. So when it says that we're going to have leaders who are empty of mitzvahs, who don't know how to serve Hashem, and then these smart people will be controlling these leaders, we know very well how these runs nowadays. In America, when we have these politicians, they're in charge, but whoever runs them are these faxes, people with their personal pockets to line their money and all that. So we know very well what this means. A fax is son of a fax, meaning one smart, son of another smart, which they have their personal interests. Okay, so now we're coming back to the last two. We learn his and his mind did not calm down until he told them, Yehavi anar bezukan v'nikle v'nikdot. What does it mean? It means those are the people who are empty of mitzvahs. Yehavi, they will disrespect, they would fight against to those who are packed with mitzvahs like a pomegranate. Pomegranate, every drop of it is filled with the seed. And they're so filled with mitzvahs, meaning such a worthy person, they will be looked down at and fought against with those leaders who are empty of mitzvahs, who don't even respect mitzvahs. V'nikle b'nichdot, and the last curse was, what does this mean? Yuvoy mi shechamires doinus ulof tekalos. The person whose even big sins look like nothing to him, that's a nothing, I can do that. He's going to come and he's going to make fun of or disrespect someone. Every little thing is like so strong for him, and he doesn't even want to transgress something that small. So this is the last thing. This is where he calmed down. So the commentators ask, finally coming to this question, what's this expression? He didn't calm down, like he really wanted the curse. He didn't want the curse. He was only sharing a prophet that he learned. So what I learned here, the commentators would answer, is that he was sharing all these prophecies, and no one picked up, no one cared, no one looked at him, and that bothered him. Nobody cares. You don't hear what I'm saying, until he realized at the end of it that they will disrespect the leader. So he realized, that's why they're not being respectful to what I'm saying, because they're already part of the curse. They're already having this. They're already disrespecting the leaders. When I'm coming and telling them a prophecy, they're not reacting to me, and that's how he calmed it down. Not because he wanted to curse, God forbid. No, he wanted to get people to react, to change, and they didn't. So he got worked up, and then, until he realized that that's also part of the curse. So now we understand a little bit better what he needed to calm down for. Now my question is, we pause right here. What have we learned right now? And what's the connection? Why is the Gemara bringing this in here? Like in the middle of nowhere? Yes. How is it connected to what we have learned before? Now we have learned the idea of you don't give over the Torah only to certain people. Where am I? Right here. We have learned the idea that you have to have certain qualifications to be able to learn. The Torah should be given over to you, but this doesn't come in here. So what I want to say, my takeaway of this, is that We have learned a lot about personal growth, and working on ourselves is not a one-day journey. It's a lifetime journey. It's something we have to work in each and every day, and it's a continuous battle. Some days we fall, sometimes we rise. And people may ask, why all this? What for? And the Gemara is coming here and sharing us with us that it was all curses, that it was all part of the plan. And this is where Hashem wanted us to serve. This wasn't something that happened to us because we sinned or because something we have done wrong. No, it happened to us because Hashem wanted us to serve Him from within this place. So when the Navi, when the prophet comes and tells us all of this, and he didn't calm down when he was so worked up, only after realizing that this is all part of the curse, it's all shared to us so that we should realize that in our situation where we are, and we don't have these qualifications that we so much desire to have, that we're missing, or at least they were in the back in the days, why don't we have them today? We should know that Hashem wants us to be here. This is exactly where He wants us to serve Him from. And this is exactly where we are, and we're doing the job, we're walking the walk. And this is a chizik. This is a something to give us some backbone to say that, yeah, we're in the right place. And it's all part of the plan. And the Gemara even finishes off here. I want to finish till here. I've been moving so fast down here. I want to finish till there, but I didn't really prepare here. So I'm going to have a little hard time with translation. But what the Gemara wants to bring out a point now, that even though we have lost so much, all of these qualifications that we have counted up till now, these 18 things, there's one thing we never lost, and that's emunah, that's trust. We never ever lost trust in Hashem, and that's something we can hold on to and go on, continue with it. This is what the Gemara says. Rav Katina says, even though in the time when Yerushalayim was destroyed and we suffered, people with trust in Hashem, people with emunah, we didn't lose. Because it says in Pusik, when people would be in their house of their fathers or one to another, they would ask, they would ask, if you have a garment, do you have the garment or not? And this is the phrase, and the Gemara is going to say later on, I think we should do it. I'm just going to turn on translation, and we're going to do it. That I'm going to say now what we're getting down to, and then we'll see it in the Gemara. They will ask one another, do you have the garment? Do you have this? And they would say, no, I don't have it. What the Gemara is going to say, that means that they can ask each other, have you learned? Have you learned this mitzvah? Have you learned this? And they would say, no, I've never learned it. And from that, you will see that they never lost their trust, meaning they were honest to one another. And therefore, they were also honest with Hashem. They never lost their trust to Hashem. They never lost the trust to one another, because when they asked them, they were honest with their answer. No, I've never learned it. I don't know about it. So now we're going to play it out in the Gemara, how the Gemara is going to say it. I'm going to put translation here to make it a little easier. What just happened? No, lost my place. Okay. Okay, so it says, things that people are careful to keep covered as with a cloak. The word of Torah that are covered and concealed are under your hands, as you are expert with regards to them. So it's not just about the garment. If you have something that people keep secret, if you have these secrets, what does it mean? And this stumbling block, machshailu is something you stumble on. So the Gemara says, Devurim, these are stuff, people don't learn how to do it. So we're talking about stuff that people only learn out of making mistakes. Okay, making mistakes is a way of learning. So the Gemara says these are things that people only learn by making mistakes. Yeshon tachas yedechu, meaning, do you have it? Yisu v'yoyma hi that in that day they would say, Loi chovesh bebaisi. No, I don't have it in my house. Ein lechem v'ein selmu lois tishmini kutzen am. Shasur that day saying, I will not be a healer in my house. There is neither bread nor cloak. You shall not make me ruler of the people. So it's basically the person being honest and saying, no, I've not learned. If the Bible says I don't have bread, means I didn't learn. I didn't learn Chemish, which is Torah, the written Torah. I didn't learn the oral Torah. I didn't learn Gemara. They are honest. So because we see they are honest and they say that they didn't learn, the Gemara says, you see, we're not going to lose people with trust. That's something we never lost. So the Gemara asks, that's not truth. That's not proof. If someone doesn't answer that he knows something, that he's learned something, maybe over there he didn't say that he knows, that he learned it. If they would say that they did learn it, then they'll start testing him. They'll start testing him. Teach me this, teach me that. So therefore they had to say that they didn't learn. So the Gemara says, no, they had another answer they could have said. They could have said, Umrah, they could have said, Aymar, they could have said, Havelai Lemaimer Gumar V'Shuchach. They could have said, oh, I did learn, but I forgot. Okay? So my Lo Chovesh, why does it mean that I didn't learn? Lo Chovesh Klal, I didn't learn at all. And because I didn't learn at all, see, he's honest with his answer. So therefore, we have to prove that they answered honestly. They didn't just say, I did learn, but I forgot. You can't test me anymore. They said, no, I didn't learn. So the Gemara says, but there's still a contradiction. I know. It can't be truth. Why? The Rava says, Yerushalayim did not get destroyed until there were no more people with trust. People lost trust in one another. And that's when it got destroyed. And how do we know that? Because it says a long phrase here. Because it says in Pusik, Shoitati bechitzos Yerushalayim. Shoitati could mean the police, the Mishtara, the ones who guard, and the streets of Yerushalayim. We come and ask or come and investigate in the streets of Yerushalayim. If you would find a person, come and search between the streets of Yerushalayim to see if you find a person who really wants to be honest and truth, and then I'll forgive you. So it sounds like this phrase comes from Hashem. Hashem saying, come check if there's any honest people. And because honest people, that's why Yerushalayim got destroyed. So how can you tell me that even though we lost all this, but trust we didn't lose? So the Gemara answers like Kasha, it's not a question. And we're going over to page 14b. When it talks about Torah, Divrei Torah, people were honest when they have been asked if they've learned Torah. They've been honest. They said, no, I didn't. But when it comes to doing business, that they weren't any more trustworthy. So I'm going to pause here. From here on, we're going to go into the story. But I think the Gemara very much finishes off with this idea that all these 18 curses were all part of the plan. And even though we're going through these difficulties and we're losing so much value and we don't have these qualifications that we used to have, but trust we still have. Maybe not in business, but we do have trust when it comes to us and Hashem, that we can be trustworthy, honestly, what we have learned and what we haven't learned. Oops. I'm going to try to save the bookmark. You know what? I can do this on my time. So thank you so much for today. Until next time.